respond in the chat if you would, please. Can everyone see my screen okay? Should say today accounting. Perfect. Yeah. So far, everything is going fantastic on this webinar, right? All right. All right, I think our participant level has slowed down just a little bit. So we're gonna get started on this is going to be an accounting basics webinar. So again, we're just gonna go over some of the basics of accounting, show you hopefully some efficiencies, some tips and tricks. If you're new to Workamajig, this might be, you know, all new information. If you've been in Workamajig a while, this might just be a confirmation that everything you're doing is exactly what you should be doing. A few things. I'm going to go through different areas in this webinar. If you guys have questions along the way, feel free to use the chat function to type in those questions. And what I'll do is along the way, I'll get to a stopping point, or when I'm going to change screens or change topics, I'll double check the questions that are in the chat, and I'll try to answer each and every one of those questions. Again, sometimes if those questions are a little bit deeper than what we intended for this webinar, then I will always encourage you to email support@workamajig.com and ask your account manager, maybe ask them that question, or maybe ask to set up a training call to go over, again, you know, that topic of conversation in more detail. So again, we're doing some accounting basics. We're not going to be, you know, diving into you know, the more advanced like work in progress or multi-currency or anything like that. So if those are, again, a topic that you're looking for, please don't hesitate to ask your account manager or look for future webinars, because we will be doing webinars on those, you know, topics also. So again, we're going to get started. Any questions or any concerns along the way, don't hesitate to use the chat to ask. And we are going to start our accounting basics now. All right. So with our accounting, I mean, again, we're going to spend the majority of our time in this Today Accounting page. But what I am going to do first is I'm just going to navigate to our system setup, because that's really what drives a lot of the defaults and the information that happens, you know, along the way. So I'm going to click here, go to our admin manager system setup, and we're going to start right here in our GL settings. First things first, you really can't do a whole lot with accounting if you don't have a chart of accounts. So we'll take a look at our, you know, our chart of accounts here. I don't think we reinvented the wheel when it comes to a chart of accounts, but this is, again, what is going to be driving a lot of that information when you start to set up defaults and things like that. So this is the chart of accounts right here. And you'll see again that we have, you know, the different account types that would be set up. Okay, so I'm not going to really go into how to set up a chart of accounts or anything like that, but just know, again, that this is where those accounts are coming from. And then the other area that's really important here would be our GL tracking options. So our GL tracking options are truly where all of our defaults are set in Workamajig. So we have like our default GL accounts. If you've maybe wondered, how is it, you know, coming up with this information? So we have our default like AR for when we're creating our client invoices, you know, our default AP for when we're creating our vendor invoices, and then kind of our default cash account and, you know, advanced bill account, and all the way down the line. So we are able to set all sorts of defaults right in here. If you're doing work in progress, you would set your work in progress accounts here. If you're pre-billing, you would set your pre-bill accounts all right here. So this information is really important to know, because this is, again, how the system is going to default information in. As you know, with Workamajig, we're pretty flexible, and you can always modify and change along the way if you're not wanting to use the default account at the time, but this will be what's driving that information when generating those invoices, vendor or client, or, you know, other transactions or receipts and payments. But also too, we have other, we can dive a little bit deeper, and we'll talk about, like, under our billing options, we have our services. And here within our services, this is our labor, right? And if we wanted to create a client invoice and we wanted that client invoice to post in detail, then we would be able to, and we're billing time, you know, on that invoice, we can see that we can actually set different services, right, to different GL account. So you can see again, my senior copywriting might have 4,300 and my creative direction has 4,200. Those are my revenue accounts. If I build different time transactions with on my client invoice for those different services, I can actually post my client invoice in detail to hit 4,300 and 4,200 for my financial reporting. Right? We do the same thing here when we're doing our purchasing. We have purchase items and expense report items. Now, these have two sides to them because, of course, we want to look at the sales side again. If I'm posting, if I'm creating a client invoice and I'm billing my postage, right? My postage will hit my 4,200 account for the sales side of things. But when I have that postage on a vendor invoice, which is generally what I might be billing, my vendor invoice posts to the general ledger, and I can have it post to a cost of goods sold or an expense account. So when you're setting up Workamajig and you're setting up your services and setting up your items, you'll want to take into account the different sales or expense / cost of goods sold account that would be associated with each of those items. And again, this is how the system is pulling in those defaults. So you'll see that we can have one default sales account, and that's for a simple invoice, but we can also create a more detailed invoice that would allow us to post down into the detail from the item. All right. So that's pretty much, there's, always a lot more to system setup that we could probably spend a whole day talking about. But this is just, again, the areas that are really driving your accounting at this time, right? So let's go back to our accounting today page because that's where we're going to spend a lot of this time. But before I move, I guess I should probably not have navigated back. And remember, in the chat, does anyone have any questions that pertain to the system setup area of Workamajig with accounting? I'm going to give it a second and we'll see if anyone types anything. And if not, we'll move on to our today accounting page. Okay, I don't see any questions. So far, so good. So here on the today accounting page, this is again, if your role is accounting, this is kind of the page that should be your home page. This is kind of where you can live and you can do a lot on almost all of your accounting processes through this page. Plus it's going to be informational and give you just a snapshot of information of what's happening again on the accounting side of things. But before I move into this left panel, which is extremely informational, I'm just going to show you that you can click the plus sign here, and the plus sign is going to allow you to create all sorts of accounting transactions. So if I needed to create a new journal entry in Workamajig, right, I can create a journal entry from here. I can create an invoice, a client invoice, if I needed to create one from scratch. Not always recommended. We have all sorts of lovely billing processes that you can create invoices that way. But if you needed to get an invoice created quickly, you can create one here. We can enter in a receipt, which we'll do in a minute. A vendor invoice, I can create a payment, credit card charge. I can start a new account reconciliation, which we will talk about. We even can go down into creating revenue forecasts, financial budgets, and labor budgets, right? That's where the accounting kind of ends. Everything else is again, day-to-day process. But these are all of the new features, like accounting functions that you can do from this plus sign right here. And we'll come back to that, I promise. Also with this today accounting page, you can click on more and you can do kind of a shortcut to your purchasing page, which is your select invoices to pay. Most of the time, you're not going to click the plus sign and create one payment to a vendor. You're going to select multiple invoices and pay, and we'll explore that a little bit. Also, you can go through and print some checks. You can also change your GL close date, which we're going to talk a little bit about when we get to our month-end procedures. You can also use this display option or your system settings to modify slightly the information you're seeing on the left over there. So I'm going to click in system settings, and you're going to see here with the system settings that the items needing attention, I have everything selected because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. But for instance, if your agency, if you don't post work in progress, no reason for you to have work in progress over there on the left, right? So you can pick and choose what items you would see over there on the left-hand side. And also if I scroll down just a little bit, I can also choose under my account balances what accounts I also want to see over there. For instance, I have bank account, AR account, and AP account selected. So those would be the account balances that I would see. We're not seeing AR right now because I don't have anything in that account, but it will appear when I post something to that GL account. So if you want to track different accounts, you can certainly track different accounts here, add or remove any of those GL account types from there. So that's kind of what the system settings will allow you to do and control over on this left-hand panel. Okay. So again, creating, clicking the plus sign here, if I, part of the accounting function or role would be that when you receive money from a client, you would enter that information into Workamajig. So you can click the plus sign here, click receipt, and you would be able to then pick the client. And you'll notice that the minute I put the client in, any open invoices that I have for that client will appear. So anything that has an amount that needs to be paid will appear the minute I put that client in. Then I would put in my check amount, right? And then you can see that this is a kind of a newer feature. I'm not, again, for those of you that have been in Workamajig for a while, you might go, oh, I've seen that, but I wasn't sure. But this is where you can now take into account a bank fee amount, right? So we're not all, sometimes we're receiving money in a different way. We're not looking at a check. So this is where you can enter in that bank fee amount. And just so you know, we do have in our system settings a default account for your bank fee amount to post to, right? So you would be able to put that information in and allow the system again to post then that bank fee amount to take account for that. The reference number, of course, would just be how are you referencing that payment that you received? Was it a check? You put the check number in. Was it some other way that you want to reference that? You would just put that information in right there. This deposit ID is, again, how the system is going to determine how it's going to group together a deposit to the bank. So if you received 5 checks in one day, they would all generally have the same deposit ID. You'll notice it looks like it's the date, today's date. It's a text field. So again, 5 receipts on the same day would, can have and should have probably the same deposit ID. But if you make multiple deposits to your bank or you handle that a different way, you can modify the deposit ID to match. Like if you do a morning and night, you can, again, type in an AM, PM, or however you want to reference that information. But just know that the deposit ID is used in your bank reconciliations, right? So you're not reconciling each individual check that you receive, you're reconciling a deposit to the bank, right? And that's where this information comes into play. The date of the receipt, the date that you want it to post to the general ledger. This is coming from that system setup that we just looked at quickly. Is it's defaulting. This is the cash account that when I post my receipt that it will go into, right? And then of course I received my $1,000. Am I applying that $1,000 to an open invoice? I certainly am. I'm going to select that invoice that I want to apply it to, and then I'm going to hit save, right? So again, this is probably not blowing anyone's mind, like that's crazy, I've never seen something like this before. But generally that's, again, I just wanted to show you the basics of how we're going to enter that receipt, and again, how those defaults are affecting Workamajig. So I see that I possibly have a question in the chat, so I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to check out my question, and then we are going to add this receipt into Workamajig. Okay. The system setting changes apply to all users or just my interface. If you make changes to anything in system settings, so if I go to admin manager system settings, that is a global change, right? So if you go in and you say the default cash account is 1111 instead of 1110, it's default for the entire system. Now, there are some caveats to that, like if you have GL companies and stuff like that, there might be, again, so I don't want to say always all the time, but generally, if you're making changes to system settings, you are making changes for your entire Workamajig. Okay, so and then someone else was just mentioning mobile deposits. They can feed through your bank as individual transactions, so that you might want a specific deposit ID to track that deposit. Again, you absolutely can make the deposit ID, add an A, B, C, D, E, F, G afterwards, or Again, it's a text field, so it's alphanumeric. You can make whatever reference you want to make that. So again, maybe you want your reference number to be your deposit ID, so that might be easier for you to track. You can absolutely do that. All right, and then someone else was just asking how I pulled up system settings. I'll show you that in just a moment on this screen. Let me just save out of my receipt and I'll show you how I got to the system settings. So I'm just going to save this, and I have it pulls up my receipt. So if there's any changes, anything I see missing, anything I need to do I need to add an attachment? Because I don't know, I have a photocopy of the check or some form of online payment or something like that, then I can always add an attachment here if I need to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to close that right there. Now, how did I get to the system settings for this page? It's under more system settings, right? So whenever you are in a today page, you will have a more and a system settings if you're an admin of the system. If you're not an admin, you might not see this feature there, right? It's a security right to be able to get to this. And this allows you to make modifications to this specific page. And these system settings, though, are by security group. So there's a difference between admin manager system setting, I should have pointed that out, and these system settings. So for this system setting, for instance, I might have, again, maybe today accounting is not the best example, but I might have different roles of people accessing this page. I might have someone strictly from accounting, and then maybe I have a security group that's more of AP or AR. I could still give them access to this page, but maybe remove some of the defaults of information I don't need them to see or access. So they would be able to, again, you would be able to kind of manage these system settings just by security group to say, hey, you know what, I'll let my account managers in here, but I'm going to override the company settings and they do not need to see our bank account information at all. So then whoever's in the account manager security group might be able to access this page and see all this, but they won't see our account balances, right? Okay. Again, maybe today accounting is not the best example of why you would want to do that, or account manager might not be the best example, but that's kind of how that would work with your system settings, is that you would be, able to do that by security group. Okay. Okay. And then someone else says, if a customer takes a discount for paying within so many days, is there a way to record that when posting a receipt? We don't really do discounts when it comes to the AR side of things. So if you're wanting to, if they are getting a discount for paying early, we do that on the AP side, right? But on the AR side, we don't do that. You would be able to then do a credit memo or something like that if you were going to credit them and leave that information open. So again, if you invoice them for $1,000 and they paid you $990, you'll have an open amount on that invoice for $10. You can, again, create a credit memo for the discounted amount if you wanted to do that, or void or write off that $10. All right. So that's, the plus sign. So remember to, under more, another accounting function, right, would be, well, I have vendor invoices to pay. So you can go under more here and go to select invoices to pay. Remember, you do always have the option to generate one payment and apply it to an invoice if you wanted to, but this call is supposed to be about efficiencies. So we would go to more and we could select our invoices to pay. And here are all of my vendor invoices with an open amount, right? And I can choose to select whichever ones I want to pay, and I can then choose to pay them. If I'm not wanting to pay all of them, right, I can, just select the ones I want to pay and I can pay them right here. Okay. So when I generate my payment, now we do have 1,000,001 filters over here on the left. So if you do not want them all to appear, or if you are looking for a specific one, or always a good thing to do sometimes is when we're doing that check run, is we might be looking for invoices just through the end of the month, right? That have a due date through the end of the month, because we're not going to do this again, before the end of June. So you can always extend this date. I probably don't have any because it's a test site, but you'd be able to extend this date. It would find any vendor invoices that have a due date before the end of the month, and then you would be able to select them, and then you would be able to generate those payments, right? Again, defaulting from my cash account. You can change that if you want, but that's coming from that system setup that we talked about. This would be the date of the payment. You can absolutely modify that if you want. I don't have credit card information set up on here, but again, if those vendor invoices were paid with a credit card and you want to reference that, then you would be able to select the credit card information here, right? And then I'm just going to generate my payment. The next step after you generate your payments, again, if you're paying with a check, I don't, I highly suggest if people are interested in the credit card portion of it, we have a webinar coming up on that one, but, I'm just going to do this the old fashioned way is I would be able to come over here and print checks, right? So you would be able to say, okay, here's those 2 different checks I just generated the payments for. I can choose to print checks, right? And then, I can print it on my check stock. We also, again, I don't have the example of this, but we also do ACH. So if you want to read our help guide articles about, setting up ACH and things like that, then we absolutely have that functionality there also. And we also work with like CSI and Fast Pay, right, to be able to generate, again, forms for that. And I would encourage you, again, to go to the help guide and just do a search for any one of those that you're interested in. And you'll find, again, the information on how to set that up and what is needed on the bank side of things to make that happen. But if I see these and I'm ready, I can, of course, print my checks, right? And it'll bring up my PDF, right? And I would be able to print my checks right there. And when I come back, of course, then it wants me to confirm my printing. Did they print correctly, after I printed them? If they, if one printed right and the other one I'm not so sure of, I can just confirm my printing, right? And then the other one will remain to be printed again. I only confirmed one. All right, so those again are some of the basic functions that you can do in here. Remember also, I can click the plus sign and create a journal entry. I'm pretty sure most of you have all seen a journal entry. So you can, create your journal entry from here, right? Now, there's a lot more, to, of course, doing accounting than just, receiving money, spending money, and things like that. It's, of course, keeping everything in line, right? Making sure that all of the transactions are, flowing through Workamajig. And that's where we kind of are going to start talking about this left side of the screen here. So after I've received my money, paid my money, entered in any journal entries that might need to be entered for payroll or other where we're moving things around, now it's kind of time to do this left-hand column here. And we have a help guide article that goes along with that, and it's called the month-end procedures. Right now, you might ask, well, do I have to do this only at month end? Well, you can do these procedures at any time, but generally they're, to go along with your accounting close. They, happen around month end, right? So the first thing, and I'm not going to read this all to you because you can definitely find this in the help guide, but we will follow along, is the first thing that is really important when it comes to accounting is we are going to review these unapproved transactions. Anytime you see something sitting in this unapproved transaction, really what that means is these are transactions that need to be posted to the general ledger, but cannot be posted to the general ledger for different reasons, right? For instance, this client invoice right here has not been sent for approval. If it hasn't been approved, it can't be posted to the general ledger. This payment right here, there's no check number on it, right? I never confirmed the printing of that check. So it also cannot post to the general ledger. And then of course we have this vendor invoice and it also was just not sent for approval, right? So when we're doing our month-end procedures, we don't want these to linger. You can see the dates of these. Now, again, test site, so, we probably wouldn't let something linger, all the way back into April. But these are areas that, you say, okay, well, I need to manage these because if they don't get approved or sent for approval or have a check number, then they are going to just sit there since April because they'll never post to the general ledger. And we'll have some problems down the line. So I, again, can click into this one right here and I can see again, I can look at this vendor invoice depending again on my role in the agency. I might have the ability to approve, or again, remember that it was not sent for approval. So whoever the approver is hasn't even seen it to know to approve it. So you can go through and I'm just going to go through some of mine and I'm just going to approve a couple. All right. So the number one thing again for your month-end procedures would be that you would need to go through and manage your unapproved transactions, right? And unapproved transactions are also like probably sometimes the number one reason why your AR or AP could be out of balance at a later time. And on this one, let's just say I didn't print the check because I realized maybe we did an automatic withdrawal, right? So I can put in, I know I didn't do ACH, but I can just, I can put in a reference number right on there. And then it'll come out. So now I've managed all of my unapproved transactions. I've submitted for approval. I've printed the checks if need be, right? I've taken that. So then of course my next step is the unposted transactions. And by the way, that's number 2. But hold on, I have a question in my chat. So give me 1 second. Okay. So I have a bunch of line items that were not sent for approval from an old employee. I can delete these without any application to the general ledger. And they're just asking if that is correct. Correct. If they have never gone through the approval process, right? Like if they've never been approved, they've never posted to the general ledger. So by deleting them, you are not in any way affecting the general ledger. Now you might run into some issues if it's a receipt that's applied to an invoice. You might have to unapply it from that invoice. And then you might be opening up slightly a bigger can of worms in that way, just again, because again, you have an unpaid receipt, an unpaid, I'll get that out, an unpaid invoice or something like that. But when it comes down to the general ledger, anything sitting in that unapproved has not affected your general ledger yet. Okay. And now we're going to go step 2. Hopefully that answered your question. All right, good. So next step 2 is we're now going to post transactions, right? So we're going to go into our unposted transactions area here. And here are all of our transactions that have gone through, if they have one, the approval process or have their check number and stuff like that, but have not posted to the general ledger yet. Now, mind you, transaction by transaction, once it gets approved, you'll have that post button at the top if you have the rights to post to the general ledger. If you do not have the right to post to the general ledger, then of course it would go through the approval process and then it would sit here in our unposted transactions. So, why would that be? You might have a lot of people who might be entering in your AP, might be entering in your AR, things like that. But again, not everybody who's doing that should have the ability to affect the general ledger. So you can, again, it's a security right to say, can't post to the general ledger. And so then this is where all this information would gather as they're entering it in. So a couple of things about posting to the general ledger is, of course, everything on here has a posting date. Right? And that posting date is the date that it will affect the general ledger. So even though today is the 22nd of June, hopefully, cross your fingers, when I post this client invoice, it is going to post as of 4/7, right? So we have a date posted and a date posted to the ledger. So 4/7/2022 will be date posted. Date posted to the ledger will be 6/22/2022 in case we're running reports and trying to figure out what just happened. So one of the things I love about this screen though is, of course, I'm looking at the screen and I see that this client invoice number 12 is going to post for $7,767.50 as of 4/7/2022. But that's all I know. I don't know exactly what accounts it might affect or anything like that. Now I can click into it and look at that individual invoice if I want to, and I can go and look at all of my details if I wanted to do that. Or I can simply click print and I can look at a pre-posting by account. We're going to look at both. And we can look at it by pre-posting by transaction. So my pre-posting by account allows me to see, oh, it helps if I select things, right? My pre-posting account, my account, okay, or it's not going to let me see anything today. Hold on, let's see if I can get this is a test site, so unfortunately I hope I'm not going to disappoint everyone on this one here. Let's see if I can just get this to cooperate with me. Let's see if I can do it this way. No. All right. I guess we're not getting our pre-posting reports to print, but I'll have to see what they're doing on my test site here. But with the pre-posting, what it'll do is it'll just give me a list and it'll say my pre-posting by account will give me the, allow me to see what accounts, what GL accounts will this affect as we, when I'm going to click post, right? And then my pre-posting by transaction will actually take this client invoice 12 and then list each GL account underneath it. I'm really sorry, I can't get this to work because I really like these reports. But it will actually show me if I'm going to post my client invoice 12, what accounts will it hit? AR and what sales accounts, right? And then again, the pre-posting by account will just show me the account and what invoice or vendor invoice or journal entry or payment is going to affect that account and for what amount. So I will have to do a little bit more exploration to see why I can't get these reports to print for me on my test site. But trust me on this one, you can do this on your account. And then when you're ready to post, of course, you can pick and choose what transactions you're ready to post. If you're ready to post all of them, you ran your pre-posting reports and everything looks good, then you can select them and you can choose to post. And it will post each and every one of these to the general ledger for the accounts that, again, they're set up to post to, for the dates that they're set up to post to. Always a word of warning is we do allow you to mass post. We don't have a mass unpost. So if you post and you go, whoops, I might not have should have done that, then you get to go find the transactions that were posted to the ledger today, and then you can unpost them individually. Just giving you that little word of warning, but hopefully my posting is going to work since my reports weren't going to work for me. But there we go. If anything, for whatever reason, cannot post for it's missing a GL account because maybe and you'll find that, by the way, if I was able to print the report, I would be able to show you this. But if it's missing a GL account or there's an issue with the GL account or something like that, if one of the transactions won't post, it would tell you that, right? And it would tell you why it can't post to the general ledger. But even though my reports weren't working, my posting was. So now you can see my post is gone. Everything has posted for me. Back to our month-end procedures. All right. Number 3, if you don't post work in progress, don't panic. You don't need to post work in progress. Not everybody does it. In fact, if you do that, you're in the minority. It's not a bad thing. I'm just, I'm saying you're not the majority. But if you do post work in progress, that should be step number 3 in your month-end procedures. If you don't post work in progress, you get to skip that. So I'm just going to go in here and, oops, that's not where I meant to go. I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to, again, I'm a little behind on this, but I can post I think I had to post April, and then I can type April. All right. And then I post my work in progress again. So this is, all right. So again, that's just my next step. That step doesn't go away. So when you complete it, you don't get the warm fuzzy that it goes away, but you can go and look and make sure that your work in progress is posted. And I'm going to stop. I think I have a question in chat. Somebody says, I have an employee who enters invoices. Then I have to go in and adjust each invoice posting date. Is there any way I can do this in bulk? I don't think there's a way to adjust in bulk the posting date of those invoices. Maybe that should be something that can be explored for when they're entering the invoice, that maybe the invoice date could be modified at that time, so you don't have to go in and individually update that. Or we can always take a look and explore that a little bit more. That might be a really good question that you can discuss with your account manager, maybe set up a call with them and see if there's any quick workarounds and stuff like that. Well, right. Someone just said you can make the posting date equal the invoice date, and that should be a setting by default in Workamajig. I think it's something that you can turn off, but I mean, that's generally what the Workamajig way, which I said in quotes, which none of you can see my hand quotes. The Workamajig way is to have the posting date equal the invoice date, so that again, when you're running your reports and looking at invoice date, it's posting into the date of that you expected it to. If your system is not currently doing that, that is a setting, and then you can always discuss again, maybe changing that setting. If that's not what you want, if you're saying, no, it is doing that and I want something different, then we can discuss the reasons why we would turn off that feature. Okay, so it is a setting, well, just so you know. All right. So step 3 was again post work in progress. If you do that, step 4, we're going to jump a little bit off of our left column because now we're getting into the fun of running our financial reports. So we've approved everything, we've posted everything. If we post work in progress, we posted work in progress, and now we're able to go down here. If we scroll down on this page, all of our financial reports are here. So you can come in and run, your balance sheet, right? And again, you should always run your financial reports for the same, the month that you're doing this. And I'm just going to run it for right now, and no tricks here with the balance sheet, right? I'm running my balance sheet as of the month end that I would be running it for, and I would be able to see again the balances in my balance sheet accounts, right? And you are always able to, let's pretend to not look at that, but you are always able to again drill down and see a general ledger drill down, right? When you look at these different accounts right here, what is making up that number? You can go take a look at that. Okay, so that is your balance sheet right there. And that is step 4. We're going to run through step 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, pretty quick. 5, of course, is then you're going to run your corporate profit and loss, right? So that report is right down here. Again, you can run it for your, date rate, whatever you want your date range to be. And again, so I'll just pick today's date to go through here, but so you can again run different date ranges. We have different options. You can do a comparative, a 1-year monthly. If you use financial budgets, you can do a budget comparison, but you would want to run this report, generate and save this report somewhere for your month end information. But again, same feature where you can drill down and you would be able to look at what's making up that account. Okay. And then that was step 5. And then we get to 6 and 7, which is we're going to run our AP aging and our AR aging. What we've done with those is you might go, well, those aren't anywhere here. Those are actually right here. So we can run our AR aging by clicking on here, and then you would be able to run that, right? And we always want to run these for posted transactions only, because we are going to use our AR aging report and we're going to compare it to our balance sheet, the AR account on our balance sheet for that same time frame, right? So our balance sheet was run as of 6/22. I'm going to run my, AR for that same date range, posted transactions only, and those two numbers should match. This right here is telling me that those two numbers actually match. If you see something else other than a date here, then that's pretty much telling you that your AR is out of balance. Okay. Now, the beauty of doing the month-end procedures is the fact that if for whatever reason your AR might go out of balance, sometimes it's just something wacky got posted in, or we had a weird date issue, right? Sometimes a receipt is dated 2023 instead of 2022 or something like that, right? Then your AR could go out of balance. But if you're doing these month-end procedures each and every month, then we would be able to find that pretty simple, because the first question we always ask is if somebody says, hey, my AR is out of balance, first question I'm going to ask you, when did it last balance? Right. And, and again, this number is a nice reference point, but it doesn't really always give the big picture. Right. So if you're able to say, well, I was running my month end for June, right, and it was out of balance, and the last time it balanced was my month end in May. Great. Then we can find, generally what we can do is we find out the amount that you're out of balance, and we can kind of run day by day these two reports and find out what day did you go out of balance, find that one transaction, and find out what's tricky about it, right? Maybe something, hopefully nothing is unapproved or unposted, because we already covered that. But again, it could just be a date. It could be a journal entry hitting the wrong account or anything like that, but easier for us to hunt it down. Not easy for us to hunt it down when someone said, I say, when was the last time you balanced? And they say 3 years ago. It's a little harder to find, and then we're going to start discussing journal entries and how to fix it moving forward. So you would run your AR aging report, posted transactions only. You're going to run this for the client invoice side of things, and then you're going to run it for the unapplied advanced bill side of things, right? So you're going to run this report for your client invoice, what's unpaid, and then you're going to run it for, hey, I have these advanced bills out there. that haven't been applied, right? And again, we're going to, in our month-end procedure help guide article walks you through that. It's going to tell you how to compare, where to compare, and how to compare that information to your balance sheet. Oops, I went a little out of order. My bad. You're going to do the same exact thing with AP, right? You're going to take AP, you're going to pick that same date that you picked your balance sheet for. You're going to run it for your posted transactions only. You're going to generate this report. And then you're going to, again, compare your amount open with your balance sheet AP account amount, and everything should match, right? Same song and dance as the AR. If it doesn't, then we're going to figure out the last day you balance, and we're going to find how much you're out of balance for. And then we're going to find the transaction or transactions that could be causing that. Okay, so that's 6 and 7. Now, not everybody. So number 8, again, is one that we can, kind of go quickly over. The accrued order detail report. Accrued orders are if you create orders in Workamajig and you bill those orders to your client. It creates an accrual, right? So it's not a general practice with regular like purchase orders. It's a little bit more common when it comes down to media, but it does create that accrual, and you want to keep track of that accrual so things don't start to slide. So you can run your accrued order detail report, which if anyone is wondering, I don't remember seeing that there before. It was not. We just recently added that in the last receipt, but you would run that accrued order detail report and once again, compare it to the account where your accrued orders go. That was in our system setup that we looked at the beginning, and make sure that those two numbers match, right? So that is number 8. Right, that we're doing that. And so far we haven't really left the left side of the screen. Last but not least is you're going to create and finalize the month's account reconciliation. So if you don't currently have an open reconciliation, right, you would click that plus sign, you would go to account reconciliation, you would pick your account. Again, pick the dates that you're doing that, enter in your statement balance, and you would start your account reconciliation. I just have mine is open. So I'm just going to go back into that one. I don't have a whole lot going on here, but you can see again for that date range, I have yours are always a little busier than my test account here, but you can see that again, I would select my increases and my decreases, and then I can finalize my account reconciliation when I'm done. So again, you would be selecting, I guess I can just extend my date range so we can just at least look at data, right? So then I would be able to come through and select, what again was in my bank statement, and then I would be able to finalize that when I've completed that. Okay, obviously none of that's going to coincide. You should have again a statement difference of 0 and stuff like that, but again I kind of fudging the numbers so we can have this information show up here. But here's all my again payments, and then my deposit, right, that I had put in there. Okay, so we would finalize our account reconciliation. And then last but not least on our month-end procedure is we would set that closing date, right? So if we went through all of that work to make sure that everything was approved, everything was posted, everything was in balance, I ran my reports, I checked my balances, against that balance sheet, nothing else should change because it's perfect. We don't want anything to change. Then we would go back into here. We would go under more and we would change our GL close date, and we would type in our GL close date right here, right? So when we put in our GL close date, just so you know, you're putting in what we call a to date. It's probably one of the only areas in Workamajig that works this way, but it's a generally accepted accounting practice, right? Is that when I say I want to close out the month of June, I'm just using that as an example, then I can put in the date of July 1st, right? And so what that means is I'm closing out everything up to, but not including July 1st, right? So no one, if I put this date in without removing this date, will be able to post or unpost anything prior to that date. Okay, as you can see, it can be modified by users that have the security right to modify. But again, you know, you should not have a whole group or list of users. I don't want to put that in there. I won't be able to do anything. You don't want to have a whole list of users who can do that, right? Because then again, they're modifying your previous accounting that you worked so hard to balance. Let me double check my question. Someone's just asking if the recording will be available. It absolutely will be available. It will be available in our help guide in support, you know, our support help guide, probably in a few days, just so you know, if you have to go. All right. And so that, you know, you put in that jail closing date, locks everything down. Nobody should be able to make any changes, you know, to all that hard work that you did previous to that. We've also added some logging to this, right? Because sometimes people do go in and have to undo a jail close date. It happens. Hopefully not very often, and hopefully not too far back or anything like that. But we do, you know, we do keep a log of that just to, again, you know, track to see who opened it and things like that. So you would be able to do that. Couple other things about this accounting, but by the way, just so you know, your year-end process is pretty much done. If you're doing this month-end process every single month, and then your year-end ends, right? You know, then there's really nothing else you need to do. You're going to do those month-end procedures, and then you can kind of read through this because our system will automatically, you know, calculate your retained earnings. Nothing else you need to do other than these simple 10 steps. If you do all of these, maybe 8 steps if you don't do all of those functions right there. But last but not least, on our Today Accounting page, of course, I showed you how to create new things, how to modify this page, how to work through, you know, kind of our items needing attention. Here are your account balances. So you can look at your account balances as of a specific date if you wanted to do that, or just as of the current date. These, of course, you can click into it and look at your general ledger drill down if you so choose. We also have views, right? So we all have our financial reports, and our financial reports are those standard reports that we would run and look at, right? And, you know, run and report out on. But these right here are views, are ways for us to find this information, right? So I do know I created a journal entry and I created it in the month of, and so you can click on journal entries, click here, and then you can kind of, in the way, you can kind of say, well, I'm looking for journal entries that are a date entered, you know, specifically, or date posted, and then you can do a search and it's going to pull up your list of journal entries, and then you can access the journal entry that way, right? So again, these are, you know, reports in a sense, right? But they're going to give you that list or view of information. I need to pull up a list of journal entries, client invoices. These are all kind of, again, financially related, so you would be able to do that. Also, we have our general ledger drill down, which again allows you, maybe you want to pick a specific account and see what posted into that specific account in a date range. So what if I, you know, said I wanted to see my checking account this fiscal year to date or something like that, and I can run that and I could say, oh, okay, I had a payment, a journal entry, a receipt, and 2 more payments, right? So I'm able to, again, kind of do that drill down. And of course, then I'm able to drill down even further. So you definitely, like I said, this is really useful information to be able to access all that stuff in Workamajig. Print it if you need to, print it to PDF, print it to CSV. But those are your views right there. Also, I'm going to leave this here. We're under the accounting dot right here, and we're in our Today Accounting page. But we do have, you can create, you have to have, you know, maybe a little knowledge of custom reporting, but you can create graphs in Workamajig. I was gonna say, I don't know if I have any accounting wise, right? So like if you wanted to generate, I'll kind of show you some, I think we have some under billing, but you can create, I have nothing. I'm sorry about that. But you can create different graphs. Again, graphs are, again, just going to be that graphical representation of information. So if you wanted, again, to like maybe see bank balances or something like that in a graph form, you can do that. And last but not least, this is just a shortcut to that same view that we saw, that general ledger drill down. If you don't want to go into Today Accounting and you want to see that information, you can kind of just do that from the general ledger drill down. And also, since we're talking a little bit about efficiencies, keep in mind that this plus sign up here allows you to shortcut to, you can scroll down to the accounting area, shortcut to creating a journal entry, shortcut to creating an account reconciliation, revenue forecast, financial budget, or labor budget. So you don't necessarily have to navigate to the Today Accounting page to click that plus sign. You can certainly do it from here, the plus sign up here at the top. All right, so that is my basic accounting spiel. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to kind of leave the webinar open for just another couple of minutes to allow you to pose those questions within the chat. Again, I encourage you, if there was something that I talked about today or something that you want a little bit more detail on that you just don't think is going to, come across in a chat question, don't hesitate to contact your account manager and say, hey, I'd like to set up a call to talk a little bit more about some of the things that were discussed. Or again, we touched on some topics that might be more advanced. And so I definitely want to talk a little bit about some of these more advanced topics. We're always happy to help you with that information. But again, I'll leave that chat open for just a little bit for any questions or concerns. If for anyone that doesn't have any, you guys have a fantastic, wonderful day, and I will talk to you guys soon. All right, I'm thinking that I don't see any questions, so hopefully I was able to cover this topic well. You guys have a wonderful day. I'm going to end this webinar, and any questions, any concerns, please don't hesitate to email support@workamajig.com. Thanks, you guys.